In high-profile cases, the truth is often obscured by the fact that so many people enjoy the attention they get from speaking or a potential financial reward like a book deal. Just watched an interview with Jeffrey Epstein's brother Mark, or purported brother, on the Patrick Bet-David show. The guy managed to talk for an hour without really conveying much other than dropping an interesting tidbit that at some point he and a few of Epstein's friends were trying to put together. Well, there was talk that they could get a bail package of for like over $100 million, which would have been the largest bail, or one of the largest bails in U.S. history at that point. And he was going to help participate with that. If he wasn't in business with his brother, the statistical odds that two brothers would each do so well in business, because remember, they didn't not inherit money from their parents. They were kind of like a regular middle-class family, the Epsteins. The odds that two brothers would each have made, $100 million or something on their own is slim to none. So one would imagine, if what he's saying is even true, that maybe he had some of Epstein's money. Now, as to the great mystery of where Jeffrey Epstein popped up with his money, because remember, the last we can document his work, he was working as an assistant math teacher at an upscale school, high school in New York, and then he gets a job at, was it Goldman Sachs? One of those big mortgage firms. And so Bet-David asked him, well, gee, it's hard to make $1 million, trading. How did your brother make $600 million? And he says, oh, well, he was just a good trader. That's very, very few people are that good at traders. Now, his brother then talks about, he throws out the tidbit, oh, well, remember, he was trading there in the late 70s, early 80s, when there was much less legal frameworks of insider trading and other things that would be now illegal. And he and a partner, a lawyer, Jeffrey Epstein, I guess in the early 80s, started a service where they would say you gave money to a broker who was doing trades for you. So nowadays, of course, we all can sit and hit a button and trade stocks at the drop of a dime. But circa 1979 or 80, you might give a guy $3 million because he tells you, I'm going to give you 10% a year, and he enacts trades. Sometimes these guys would steal the money. Of course, there's always percentage of malfeasance, and Jeffrey Epstein and his lawyer partner would recover people's stolen or money that went away due to irregularities. And he was saying that's how he accumulated money. But again, Epstein had $600 million, which, as I talked about in another video, is about the same amount, oddly enough, that Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, had in his net worth when he fell off of a boat because he was taking a number one while he had the flu. So this guy that has $600 million is on a boat feeling sick, and he walks up to go wee-wee over the deck of a boat and falls off. I guess, maybe, Maxwell at the time of his death was embroiled in a controversy. Well, not controversy. He was embroiled in being investigated for looting the pension fund of one of the big companies he was CEO of. What was that book? If you went to public schools in the 80s and 90s, Little Brown and Little, maybe, that published a lot of school books. You may remember that name. I think Maxwell had control of that, and he was looting the pension. Maxwell was definitely an intelligence asset. Now, was it of England or the UK? Was it of Israel? Was it of both? And of course, there's this whole premise that Ghislaine Maxwell got with Epstein, and they used her father's money to set up this lifestyle as a honeypot to potentially lure in people they could blackmail. And some people point to a one-time payment of $150 million to Jeffrey Epstein from one Leon Black, who's a multi-billionaire financier. Now, why would this guy have paid Jeffrey Epstein $150 million at once? It's supposedly for like estate planning fees. I mean, that's quite a big amount. So was that some type of blackmail? Did he help Leon Black recover some money? The thing is, Jeffrey Epstein's trading history, I mean, it sounds good to say he traded and all that, but there's really not a lot of record of it, I don't think. So now, another component is what happened to Jeffrey Epstein in jail, of course. And I've avoided talking about this. I don't like to get too close to the conspiracy theory thing. So let me first say that a guy who was rich and is now charged with the most heinous crime, something that, you know, if you become a dope addict and rob a bank, I mean, people can eventually forgive you for that. Your family will stand by you, but, you know, SA trafficking with, you know, underage girls is something that you might get disowned by your own family. It's going to be rough in prison. And if you're going from living in mansions all around the world to living in a jail cell, a man in Jeffrey Epstein's situation is the exact type of inmate that's at high risk for taking his own LIFE in jail. And I mean, for any of you that's been in even jail for a few weeks, you'll know people do attempt to and successfully take themselves out. It's a very, I mean, some people, jail doesn't bother too much, but some people it's very hard on, especially when you first go in. So certainly wouldn't be shocking that he did take himself out. Now, Epstein's brother, Mark, is the one who hired Michael Baden, who's a celebrity, for lack of a better term, medical examiner. Michael Baden worked on JFK's assassination in 1961. He's appeared on many TV shows. You know, people pay him to autopsy after the autopsy that's been being done by whatever the local law enforcement is in their particular case. And he said he thought that it didn't look like a suicide, that there were 3 snapped vertebrae, and that he thought it was consistent. Now, how would a medical examiner know this? Not quite sure. Maybe they could with the karate chop. Like a movie, like someone karate chopped him, spun his head. Now, Epstein had been, well, he told his lawyers he'd been attacked in his cell by his roommate, Nicholas Tartaglione, who was a real lunatic. This guy just got convicted last week of quadruple homicide. He was a former New York State cop, big muscle steroid guy. He had a partner who was an even bigger muscle steroid guy who was also a cop, but when he got pulled over by the police when the whole investigation in Tartaglione was starting, took himself out. And Tartaglione, as what he was convicted of was he got in league with some Hispanic gentleman, a guy that was a landscaper that he met, who I guess told him he had relatives in Mexico, and Tartaglione and whoever else gave him some money, and he went down to Mexico, and he came back once with the stuff, and they made some money, and then they gave him even more money to go back down again to re-up, as it were. And the guy, this time he had a story. Money got messed up, he got robbed. So I don't know if Tartaglione was in a roid rage or something, so he jumped straight to wanting to take this guy out. So he calls a meeting with the guy, or he lures him somewhere, maybe under the pretense of a landscaping job. The guy doesn't know it's Tartaglione that's really behind the phone call. the guy shows up with two of his cousins and his brother or something, thinking it was going to be like a family landscaping or construction job. Tartaglione was such a big rough guy, and he had a GUN. He grabs all of them, takes them to like his sort of, I don't know if farm's the right word, but this was in like an upstate part of New York where, you know, houses maybe sitting on an acre or 2 or 3 of land or something. And he's so strong, he zip ties one of them and ends them, forcing the other ones to watch. And then he, I think, made 2 of them dig their own grave, kneel down. So 4 of them he buries in his own backyard. So he was finally convicted of that. But he was Epstein's cellmate while he was awaiting trial. And Epstein was found in a cell a few weeks before he was found in a cell for the last time, with some abrasions on his neck, laying in a fetal position. And Tartaglione denied attacking him, but Epstein told his lawyers that he did. Epstein wasn't in a cell with them much, because Epstein paid his lawyers basically come and sit with them around the clock. If you got big bucks, you get lawyer visits all day long. So they would pay just kind of junior brand new lawyers to just come and sit with them so he wouldn't have to be in a cell. So Tartaglione had been complaining about conditions. There's always class action lawsuits against that MCC, Manhattan, rodents, bad conditions, of course. It came out when Epstein was found that the video cameras were not working. Now, according to Epstein's brother, the Attorney General of the United States told him, now why would the Attorney General be looking at this? Told him that he looked at the one video camera that did work, and it showed that nobody entered the cell block, so thus it couldn't have been homicide. But of course, what about the other 11 people or 10 people in the cell block? At this point, when it happened, Epstein was in a cell by himself after he was claimed to have been attacked by Tartaglione. Tartaglione, for his part, claims, in fact, he was a hero, and he tried to use it at his sentencing to show what a good guy he was, saying that he stopped Epstein from an self-unaliving attempt, and not that he roughed him up. But that's not what Epstein said. So, playing detective, thinking about what goes on in a prison cell is enticing, you know, for you armchair investigators. Oh no, my flight's delayed. For you armchair investigators, but you know, guards that fall asleep, video cameras that don't work is, I don't say par for the course, but quite frequent, and you don't have to take the word of any inmates or anything. There's lawsuits all the time about stuff like this, about people's door mechanism not working and not closing at night in maximum security places where guys get to other guys. Maybe they're left popped on purpose. So while the conditions in there where Epstein met his demise might sound unbelievable to you if you think prisons really run perfectly, and some are, but some are not. And so somebody else on that tier could have popped his cell door or had it unlocked and went into Epstein's cell, karate chopped him. It depends how much stock you put into those. Now, I've gotten to the point, I always think about the motivations of people involved in the case, not the criminals, but like this Baden, this criminal forensic, or this forensic autopsy guy. He gets hired by people all the time. So implicitly, if you're being hired to do an autopsy after the official autopsy, it's sort of like implied the family must be thinking, looking for, wanting you to find a different description, outcome, explanation than what the state already has. And I'd have to know more about Baden. That might sound a little weird, but if he's making a professional living going around re-autopsying people, if he was just validating and saying, oh, yep, it's what the state said, he wouldn't be in that business for long. Doesn't mean he's purposely lying, but all of us, when we have a financial incentive, it's called the moral hazard in economics. He has a subconscious benefit in all these cases for finding for different situations. None of us have the medical background to really say, well, does that sound plausible or not? Hard to say. Ghislaine Maxwell, she got 20 years, but she's only got, let's see, 2037 as her scheduled out date. You know, by the time it gets towards the end, she might get a year or two off. So she's damn near down, and with halfway house, she's damn near down to the 10-year mark on a 20. So she's not quite halfway done, but she's over the hard hump. She's way past the third. Another 2 years, 18 months, she'll be at the halfway mark. She's settled in. She's got money. Who knows? You know, there's sex goes on in those prisons, and I don't mean women on women, though that does too, but male guards, you know, there's DRUGS's working on this new documentary in Detroit, and a woman who got caught muling many kilos of H from the Pakistani plug to Detroit when she was doing her federal time. The people I'm working with who are on out, so I'm doing a documentary with, they would get magazines, like magazines with nice thick pages, Vogue or something, take a razor blade and slice the pages sort of in half, or, you know, slice a single page open and just layer it with grain, you know. And they said she stayed high every single day her time in there. I'm not saying Maxwell's doing that, but if you got money, if you're high on opioids and you're having some SEX and some guards are bringing you in a little extra food here and there, and you're watching TV and you're on the internet, is it great? No, but it's not nearly as bad as people might think once you settle in, if you know how to operate, especially if you got money. Especially in a woman's prison where there's definitely some violence, but not like a men's prison. So Maxwell, she's straight. She's gonna do her time, come home. All these supposed secrets she has, maybe somebody's gonna pardon her in a few years. Who knows? So just thought that'd be an interesting updates. And I think there was some new documents that came out recently. Need to look into that. But yeah, I watched Mark Epstein be interviewed at Patrick Bet-David. Interesting. I mean, he didn't really say much. He denied that he and his brother interacted much, but pretty telling comment. Again, like I said, when they were talking about ranging $100 million bail, he was at least going to be helpful in that, his house and some other property. How much money does this guy have? He made this much money on his own? Al Profit, American dope.